Growing a Healthy Child, where we help busy parents grow healthy kids with less stress and more joy.
So welcome back to Growing a Healthy Child. We are on part 2 of our episode with Sapna Von Reich today, and we are going to be making smoothies. Sounds like fun.
This is going to be great. So part 1, we were already salivating the whole time. And this is part 2 of smart snacks for brilliant kids, how we can support our children with food so they have their best chance at being successful in whatever they do. So before we get started, Sapna, tell us a little bit about where you came from. How did you come to be teaching? Okay, wait, stop. How many children's classes do you teach in a year? And how did you come to this?
I don't know how many classes I teach in a year, but I know that I teach 200 to 500 kids a year.
Wow.
And I'm not a teacher. Like, I'm not a full-time teacher or anything. this is my cooking classes. Right. And I just teach when the kids are out of school. So I'm very active with kids, teaching kids in summer. And I just start spring break classes this week. And I do it in fall, and then I do Christmas, the whole holiday break. So I do a five-day long camp, and then I do some single classes along, the whole 3 months of the fall season. And classes are very seasonal. So we taught a lot of spring stuff. Right now we made asparagus soup. We did, strawberry ice cream or nice cream, and, lemon brownies. So that was spring. And then come summer, we'll do refreshing drinks, homemade sorbets, so really seasonal. And then in holiday season, I do some baking and some edible gifts for teachers, lots of different things. And I also teach Food for Life program, which is designed by Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. And so I teach a week-long Food for Life camp as well.
Wow. And what did you do before you started doing this?
Yeah, so I grew up in India, and I went to a design school, and I studied fashion design, accessories, and jewelry. And then I was traveling around the world with my work. And then I showed up in Fort Collins, Colorado. I just got married, and, my husband and I moved here, and I had nothing going on. And then I was like, okay, what can we do? So I just sat home for a while, and then trying to figure out what I can do. And then after I had my first child, and he was 1.5, I was like, okay, I need to do something. And somehow going back to jewelry industry was not very feasible because I wanted to be still with him at home. So I started teaching part-time cooking classes because that was always my second passion. And coming from nowhere, no culinary background, just whatever I had learned from my mom. So I started with Indian cooking classes, and then I used to teach just once a month. This is 20 years ago, mind you. And then slowly, when my second child went to school full time, that's when I started teaching more and more and more. And I got some certification along the way. And I got involved with Physicians Committee's Food for Life program. And then there was no looking back. I just got so into food and nutrition that I didn't go back to jewelry at all.
Yeah.
It's a complete 180 degrees for me, but it seemed to have worked very well. And I really enjoy what I do. And I teach a lot of people. I teach adults. My kids' classes are 6 to 13, and my adult classes start at 14. So I can cover everyone.
Wow.
Nice.
And it is applicable to all ages. So
yes,
everybody.
Mm-hmm. But I'm very, like, one of my kids' classes, I have only kids, no parents. And 14 plus can come with their parents too.
Great. Well, let's jump into the first recipe.
Sure.
Ready?
Yes.
All right.
I love talking about food, so get me back in it.
Right? Well,
so do we.
You're in good company. Yeah. You're going to start out with making smoothies, right?
Yeah.
So what is it about, you said you don't usually measure anything? Because I think some people, they get a hold of a recipe and it becomes their security blanket. They hang on to it. They don't want to deviate, especially if they're not super comfortable in the kitchen. Tell us
Yeah, and
a bit about measuring and not measuring.
I totally get that too. You know why? Because as I just mentioned, that I did not go to a culinary school. I learned everything from my mother. So my mother would just go in the kitchen and she'll just put a pinch of this and a pinch of that, like sometimes in her hand or sometimes straight from the bottle, just shake it in. And so this is how I learned it. In fact, I remember when I was starting to teach cooking classes, I was literally sitting with measuring cups and spoons so I can measure things. So then I know that someone who's taking my recipe can actually make it at home. But it's just how you grow up. If you've seen your parents do that, or if you've never learned it as a child, then you don't have that skill, so to say. So then, it's just more comforting for them to measure everything. Does that make sense? But for me, I don't measure. And in fact, sometimes I'll call in my daughters, like, let's do it. And I'll say, hey, let's go get that recipe from the computer. She's like, Mom, since when you started referring your recipes? So she reminds me that, I think that, okay, now I've come up with this pad thai sauce and I need not rack my brain again. I can just, measure it and put it in. And she's like, nope, we should do it every time differently. So that's how we did it, and that's how I've taught her growing up. But so it's just, but I do recommend using recipes as guidelines, especially for smoothies, because you don't want to always necessarily just have mango or just have Swiss chard or just have these berries or that berries. Kind of go with seasonal fruits and change it up.
Right. Yeah. And another thing too, I feel like if someone's making a dish for the first time, depending on what it is, maybe they feel more comfortable with the recipe. But like you said, as you make it more and more, how you've made it in the past. So then it's like, okay, I'll just throw a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And it makes it easier to kind of make on the fly and not have to measure everything out. But
for sure,
in the beginning, people feel more comfortable with the recipe.
Just because it says, let's say a quarter teaspoon garlic powder. Depending upon how old your garlic powder is or how potent it is, it can really change the flavor of the garlic, right?
Yeah.
So, and the way I cook is I'll, shake some in or I measure it out depending what's going on, but then I still have to taste it, right? To balance it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a very good point, Meryl. Sorry to interrupt. That's a very, very good point, what you just mentioned, because I teach a lot of ethnic cooking classes like Indian, Ethiopian, and I get this comment a lot that, mine didn't taste as good as yours, because it really becomes a point where you're saying you're using fresher spices, or use a little bit more because the potency goes down as it sits. Especially if you have spices on top of your stove, there are these pretty racks you can find, and then they're always, getting that heat, and they are not going to stay that. So I never put it next to the heat.
Right.
And that way they stay a little bit fresher.
Right. We say recipes are a guide.
Yes.
They're a guide. It's a place to start. Yeah. You don't have to hang on to them like it's a gospel.
Yes, but if that works for you, and if that gives you that moral support, I would say please do it, know. But especially only for the smoothies, I say that please use it as template, because you want to really, because blueberries have different nutrition, mangoes have different nutrition. Watermelon eaten in summer has a cooling effect, right? But you eat that in December, you don't like it. You want an extra blanket on you, because the watermelon is not meant to be had in winter. It's a fruit for summer. That's why it grows in abundance in summer. Make sense?
Yes,
right. That's right.
Yeah,
totally. So Sapna has a most beautiful arrangement. For those of us who aren't, for those of you who aren't watching, she has a most beautiful arrangement of one bright light green plate with mangoes and some tablespoons of seeds, I think they are, right? And then she's got another plate that's a bright yellow, and it's got a yellow Swiss chard leaf. And then she's got another plate that's a darker green with blueberries and cherries. It's so pretty, just beautiful.
So many different colors.
Really, really beautiful. So now she's going to get ready to make a smoothie, I think.
Yes. So I'm going to make a smoothie. Well, I'm going to start with the Swiss chard and mango smoothie. Why I make this smoothie is because it reminds me of my mom's mango shake.
Okay.
I grew up in India where my mom would make us mango shake, which was just milk and mangoes and lots of sugar. And we would like die for it. And then that happened only in summer because that's when the mangoes were grown and that's where mangoes were available in the market. And so that used to be our treat for summer. And having frozen mangoes, you could do this, you know, a little bit in other seasons too, but definitely do it in spring and summer. So I am using frozen mangoes, and you could put it, you don't have to thaw them out. You could just directly bring it from the freezer into the blender. But if you don't have a high-speed blender, I would say just let the fruits thaw for 10 minutes, and then that will help you blend better. But I would also suggest not to let those fruits thaw in the blender because then they become a chunk. They are harder to blend that way. So leave them on a plate, and then they will kind of start thawing and it'll be easier. And of course, when you use milk for this recipe, like a plant-based milk, you're going to get an even more creamy, my mom's mango shake recipe. But this is my version of it. So I just start with H2O at 1.5 cups. And then I put, you want to put greens first, just because then the greens will blend better. So I'm using Swiss chard. You could use any greens, really. Swiss chard makes this smoothie very velvety, thick, and nice. And you can get rainbow chard. And all you do is you want to just rip it a little bit and then get that stem out. We're not using the stems for this smoothie, but I would save this and then chop it up and use it in my soup or stew I'm making next or whenever, or I can save it and make broth. Okay, so what you do is then you clean this very well because greens have dirt. So I've already cleaned some here. And I like to put it in a baggie with paper towel underneath. You could use a container. And that way the greens stay fresh for 5 days. So you see, these greens are nice and fresh and ready for you. Now, if you were starting or you're starting to give your children green smoothie, I would say just put a handful. You see that? That is a handful, which is about a cup, which is also about 2 leaves without stem. Okay? But you want to graduate into having, you know, slowly add a leaf extra and a leaf extra. So shall I blend it with 2 leaves or all of it?
Start with I'm good with it either way.
Yeah, really.
Okay.
Well, how if you're gonna be drinking it or eating it, then yeah, do what you prefer.
So here's what I'll do. I'll show you the starting smoothie and then I'll show you my smoothie. How about that?
Okay, that sounds great.
So this is the starting smoothie where you have 30% greens and 70% fruits and a liquid to blend. Liquid of choice being almond milk or any plant-based milk, or you could use water. And then you're going to use mangoes. So that's where you're going to get all that flavor, yummy flavor. Mangoes have beta carotene in them, so definitely eat them. Also, I need bananas. I don't like to leave the bananas out just because then they get a little dark. So do you guys know, Carrie and Meryl, that if you freeze your bananas, they might still get dark in your freezer. So what I noticed, okay, is if you take your frozen bananas and put them all the way in the back of your freezer so that when you open your freezer door, they're not going to get oxidized and they're not going to turn brown. They'll stay nice and white.
It's interesting that you say that because I have noticed that. Now that you're saying it, I realized, yes, mine have, but I didn't realize there was a way to prevent that. So
if you keep them Yeah, if you keep them all the way back. Now, of course, as they grow older, like if they've been sitting there for 2 months, they're going to turn brown. That's okay. We can still use them, but just a thing to remember.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to just break them into 4. Now, I'm using a high-speed blender called Vitamix, so I don't have to worry too much about frozen fruits. And then you can have, flax seeds are very good for you. They have omega-3. So this is the best way to get them. And a tablespoon is all you need in a day, at least, So you just put that in there and forget about it. If you were doing this for your children, which you probably will, you could put a tablespoon of hemp seeds too. It's going to make it more creamy. It's going to give you more, goodness. But I'm just doing this for myself, so I need not add hemp seeds if I don't want to. Sounds good?
Yeah.
And then we're going to blend it to make a smoothie. Simple as that. I'm going to do it right there in that corner, if that's okay.
So while Sapna's blending, let's talk a little bit about the nutritional value of mangoes, chard, and bananas.
Yeah, so as she mentioned, the mangoes have beta carotene. And I guess before we start, all of this has fiber, as we mentioned in the first episode. And all fruits and vegetables contain it. So you don't have to worry about that. Whichever ones you're eating, they definitely contain that. Another great way to get greens is by incorporating them into smoothies. In this case, we have the Swiss Chard, and it contains iron and calcium, multiple different vitamins like vitamins A and C. And then we have the bananas, which have antioxidants and potassium, so many other vitamins and nutrients. Yeah, and they all go together. It's good to have greens with fruits that contain like vitamin C, because you have iron in greens and the absorption is helped by vitamin C. So combining those two just maximizes the chance that you're going to get all the nutrients in both of them.
Yeah, thank you for explaining that. And then this is my smoothie. So you see it's green.
Yeah.
And it's really yummy. Yeah.
That looks great.
I got to give you one more tip. So when I started, when you look at this, it looks too green. And then your children will be like, I don't want to drink that green stuff, right? So there are 2 ways to do it. So one way is to say, I challenge you to find out if there's anything you taste besides fruits. Or you could put a blindfold and make a little game out of it. But what I did is I did it in this steel tumbler, and then they did not see the color. And I just gave them a straw, and I gave them while they were playing outside. So they didn't even know what they were drinking. They just needed something, and then they got hooked onto it. There are many ways to cheat,
Mom.
That's such a great idea to use the steel, because then you could kind of play a game and see if they can tell you what they think is in it. So they can't see the color, and if they didn't help you make it, seeing if they can guess what went.
Yes, for sure. And then if you think your kids will like it sweeter, put a date or 2 right in the blending, and then that'll give you them a more sweet smoothie. And again, as we talked about, date has fiber, and date's a good sweetener. So if they want it ever more sweet, please them, please. Let them have it, don't fight about it. And then if we were doing this for an adult, or if you're used to it, if your kids are used to it, then I'm going to put in that half of the blender left, I'm going to put more greens. And now I'm going to blend it. This is how I like it. I put one whole bunch of this chard into that recipe. But then you do it slowly. It takes a bit of a time to get to that direction. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because then you can definitely taste the maybe more bitter greens.
You taste the green for sure, but then you start liking that. But I won't say start that way for the children, because once they say no, there's no going back.
Yeah.
So I would say do it slowly. When they start appreciating the 2 leaves you've put in there, that's when you put one more.
Right.
And then one more. You know what I mean? And even if you don't put more than 2, that's okay too. They're still getting some greens, right? So I'm going to quickly blend this.
Yeah. So the moms and dads in the room who are watching or listening, you already know that sometimes you have to gradually introduce new foods to children. And just so that you remember, it can take 20, sometimes 30 times of introducing a new food to a child before they actually accept it.
Yeah.
And the introduction might only be literally they hold it and look at it and they put it down. You know, that could go on for 4, 5, 6, 7 times. Then they hold it and maybe they just barely put their tongue on it, the cut side of a fruit or a tomato, you know, and you know, that was enough. That can go on for a while, but please be persistent. Try again, try again, try again.
And try to introduce these foods in different ways. So if you prepare it one way the first time, maybe they might not be able to tell you, but maybe it's a texture thing. So try it prepared a different way and maybe add it to a smoothie, and they can't actually see it, but you can still,
or the texture isn't
find
there.
A way to introduce it that they will begin to at least taste it. And then maybe that will allow them to realize that they like it.
Right.
Lovely.
So Sapna is showing us the 2 different versions of her smoothie, one with just 2 leaves of Swiss chard and one with something like 4 leaves of Swiss chard, one being a lighter green and one being a darker green. And she's smiling from ear to ear and dancing. So how are your kids' eating habits? Do they tend to eat more fat, sugar, or salt than you would like or is recommended? Do they seem to prefer fast foods and processed convenient products over fruits and vegetables that you can prepare at home? Do you ever struggle to create healthy meals only to have them refuse to eat them? And worst of all, does your dinner table ever turn into a battleground? If you find yourself in these situations, faced with these questions, believe me, we feel you, and you're not alone.
Wouldn't it be great if you were part of an active, well-informed, supportive community, working to transform how we feed our kids so we can make a difference for them and for the planet as a whole? Well, you can. That community actually exists.
It's a thing already.
It's plant-based nutrition movement. That's what that is. Join us and get involved. Become a member. There's no cost to join. Also, check out our Facebook page and connect with other people just like you. Join the 6 Million Seeds Coalition or launch a 6 Million Seeds project in your area. Contact us at 6mseeds@pbnm.org to get in touch or to learn more.
So that's now another thing you can do is now you want them to have greens, but you don't want them to look at that green color. Just put a 1/2 cup of blueberry in this recipe. And then it turns into a beautiful purple color.
Oh,
everybody's happy. You got a little extra berry action going on there, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's another way to do it. So we will put this aside and then we'll do the next one. And I'm not even rinsing my blender thoroughly because it's all going back in there again, right? So this time we will do it with some milk. So I'm using almond milk. You always want to shake. If the milk, your plant-based milk says it's fortified, you always want to shake it because most of those vitamins stay on the bottom. So shake it and then add it. And I'm done measuring already.
And she just dumped 2 inches of milk in the bottom.
That's about 1.5 cups.
Okay.
And then this time we'll put hemp seeds. Because this is gonna be a drink for my daughter, and then she could use a little extra boost of flavors,
Yeah.
And then if you want, you could also put hemp seeds as well as flax, so you get both. And then you notice I put that in the liquid first so that they don't fly away.
Right. Make it a little easier.
Yeah.
So put the liquid at the bottom of the blender first, and then your seeds.
Exactly. And then here's my blueberries and cherries. Now, cherries is what I call my sweetener in this recipe. The
Okay.
cherries are super sweet, and that's going to help us sweeten this recipe, right?
So those are frozen cherries, Sapna?
These are frozen cherries and frozen, oh, they're flying away from me. Frozen cherries and frozen blueberries. A little bit thawed now. They were sitting out, but you don't have to thaw them. Okay. And this time we could, of course, put Swiss chard again, but we could also just make it easy on us and use any of these baby greens which come in a tub already washed, right?
Okay.
So
So
a handful.
salad greens now.
Yeah. So this is spinach, but you could use, any power greens, kale, anything. So again, I call this 1 cup. If it fits in my hand, even if you have a bigger hand, that's okay. That's your 1 cup.
Yeah.
And that's what you want here. If you're starting, like as I just said, if you're starting, you could just add that much. Otherwise, add 4 of those handfuls, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you could definitely add a banana. It's going to make your smoothie creamer. And if you have a child who does not like banana, don't add it, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Simple
in
enough.
winter time, when the cranberries are in season, I put an 1/8 cup of cranberries here. They make the recipe a little bit more slightly tart, but they also bring in all the nutrition, wonderful nutrition from the cranberries. Yeah. So if you have it, add it. Okay.
Yep.
Again, there's no hard and fast rule on how you make your smoothie. Just do what you feel like. If you think you want more sweetener, 1 or 2 dates go in there. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I think I added everything. Now I'm going to blend it.
So a little bit about the nutritional value of what's going in the cherry blueberry smoothie.
Deliciousness.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So most of the fruits that she used have antioxidants, which help with decreasing inflammation. So very beneficial. They also have other vitamins similar to the ones that we mentioned for the previous smoothie, have vitamins A and C, and spinach also has iron, so good to pair those together. And yeah, fiber, like we mentioned, they're as we mentioned before with the dates, they are a natural source of sugar, and since they have fiber linked together, it's a great way to sweeten things without using refined sugar.
Yeah. And there's another thing this is a very Indian thing to do, is to take your jars and just take the labels out and then reuse those jars.
Yeah.
So this is a pickle jar.
Yeah. Especially the wide mouth jars, right?
The wide mouth, yeah. And then something which holds 3 cups. I really like that, because usually smoothies, when you blend them, they're about 3 cups. So I can put all of this in one, So that's one recipe.
Nice.
It's perfect. Back here.
Purple.
That's called eating the rainbow.
Yeah, it is. I was just gonna say, with the green smoothie, the fruits look so vibrantly colored before you added them, and I think they look just as vibrant after they're mixed.
Yeah, for sure. And this one has milk, so it's a little more creamy. You could definitely put a banana in there. Make it work for you, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And then next time next time you have your children in the kitchen, and then let them all make a blend.
Yeah. Yes. Try their
and then whatever little left, you pour in a jar, and that becomes your rainbow smoothie.
There you go.
Right.
So nothing goes to waste. If you have something left over, your belly is just too full, put in a popsicle mold and throw it in the freezer.
Right.
You got smoothie popsicles.
That's right. That's right. Also, a reminder that we have in the show notes a link for an infographic from Sapna that has her contact information, her website, her Instagram, as well as 10 swaps to make smart snacks to keep your kids going strong, keep them brilliant.
Yes, that's a perfect resource. We 3 of us created together, so that's good. Thank you so much for doing that.
Our pleasure. This is great. Well, thank you so much for sharing all your experience and your joy in the kitchen. That's so lighthearted and so easy. and such a great way for parents to begin to reconnect with their children, to create healthy food, to pass this knowledge on, to help support their health, their well-being, emotionally, psychologically, physically. So important, so gorgeous. Yeah.
Yes.
So much. Thanks so much.
Sure. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, our pleasure. You can come on anytime.
Will do.
Absolutely. Remember, we got the free digital download from Sapna in the show notes. The link, please take advantage of that. Sapna, are you doing any classes online that our viewers might be able to take advantage of?
Oh yeah, I teach once a month. I do cook along classes, so you could be anywhere in the world and come to the class. It's all on my website. My next one is called Indian Comfort Food, and then it's Healthy Greens Indian Style. And then we get to the summer, so I'm doing some plant-based sandwiches and some summer salads. So this is all on my website. You could go take a look if you like, and then come cook along with me sometime.
Tell us, what is your website, even though we're going to have it on that digital download.
Sure. And so it's totally all my name. So sapnavonreich.com. So if you can get my name, you can get to my website. Which is tricky, right?
Yep, definitely look in the show notes. Her name is
definitely find it.
Yeah.
And I also teach Food for Life classes. So they're also online. I'm doing a cancer series, which is starting on Tuesday, which is 4th of April. But I keep coming back and teaching more. I just kind of post 3 months of stuff on my website, and then come back. I really work seasonally, even for my classes. So my website will not show you what I'm teaching in December, but you're going to come back for that.
All right. Very good. Perfect. All right. We will talk to you soon. And thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Yeah, you too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.